Welcome to Screen Hollywood, the home of movie news and entertainment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Talk about Millie Alcock. What the hell was she doing? She claimed she was a target of male discrimination and sexualization when she had no evidence to back it up. She was supposed to be promoting the film, but in her warped mind, I think she thought she was giving herself status by making these claims. In the interviews, she came across as an annoying little girl who was completely tone deaf and doesn't know when to keep quiet. Ah man, it was bad. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Screen Hollywood. After months of anticipation, endless speculation, and plenty of online debate, Supergirl has finally landed in cinemas. As one of the earliest films in the new DC universe, expectations couldn't have been much higher. Fans weren't just hoping for a great superhero movie, they were hoping for another step forward for a franchise trying to redefine itself for a new generation. So, does Supergirl live up to those expectations? Unfortunately, from our perspective, the answer is no. The film has also received a major hammering from critics and moviegoers alike, opening to a terrible $30 million in the box office, even worse than Morbius. While the movie certainly has moments of visual ambition and flashes of creativity, we walked away feeling that it never truly found its identity. There are ideas here that could have worked brilliantly, but they never quite come together into a satisfying whole. In today's review, we're going to break down what worked, what didn't, why the film struggles emotionally, and whether it's actually worth spending your money on a cinema ticket. Let's dive in. Whenever you introduce one of DC's most recognizable heroes into a brand new cinematic universe, expectations naturally skyrocket. Supergirl isn't just another comic book character, she's one of DC's most iconic heroes, carrying decades of history and an emotional connection with fans around the world. That also means audiences arrive with certain expectations. People expect hope, they expect heart, they expect someone they can immediately root for. Those qualities have always been central to the character, regardless of which version of the comics you grew up reading. Unfortunately, that's where this interpretation begins to stumble. One thing that immediately stands out is the visual direction. This isn't the bright, hopeful science fiction adventure that some viewers might expect. Instead, the film embraces a much rougher, dirtier aesthetic. Imagine a universe that feels permanently covered in rust, dust, and worn-out machinery. There are obvious influences from post-apocalyptic cinema, and at times the environments reminded us of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Every location feels lived in, scarred by conflict, and stripped of any sense of glamour. Now, to be fair, that's not automatically a bad thing. A gritty visual identity can absolutely work if it's supported by compelling storytelling. The problem is that the visuals eventually begin to dominate the experience rather than enhance it. Instead of feeling immersed, we found ourselves becoming exhausted by the constant barrage of dark colors, cluttered production design, and heavily textured environments. There are certainly impressive practical sets and some striking cinematography, but overall, the world never feels particularly inviting. Another aspect that's impossible to ignore is the influence of James Gunn's filmmaking style. If you've enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy films, you'll immediately recognize certain creative fingerprints. The quirky supporting characters, the offbeat humor, the cosmic road trip atmosphere, the sudden shifts between comedy and emotion. These ingredients worked wonderfully for Marvel because they felt fresh and perfectly suited to those characters. Here, however, they don't always feel like a natural fit. Rather than creating something uniquely Supergirl, the movie often feels as though it's borrowing tonal ideas from previous successes. That's not to say James Gunn shouldn't have a recognizable creative voice. Every great filmmaker does. The issue is that Supergirl herself never quite feels like she's driving the tone. Instead, the film often feels driven by its style rather than its central character. For us, this is where the movie encounters its biggest obstacle. A superhero movie lives and dies by whether audiences emotionally connect with its lead. Think about the greatest comic book films. Whether it's Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, or Wonder Woman, each of those characters succeeds because audiences genuinely care about them. You want them to succeed. You understand their motivations. You empathize with their struggles. With Supergirl, that connection never fully develops. This version of Kara is presented as fiercely independent and emotionally guarded. Again, those aren't bad character traits on their own. The problem is that the film spends so much time emphasizing her abrasive personality that it delays giving audiences reasons to emotionally invest in her. Confidence without vulnerability can quickly become emotional distance. As the film progresses, there are certainly moments where cracks begin to appear beneath her tough exterior. Unfortunately for us, those moments arrive too late. By that point, much of the emotional momentum has already been lost. Let's talk about the story itself. Without diving into major spoilers, the plot follows a fairly familiar structure for this type of space adventure. Characters travel between dangerous worlds, alliances are formed, enemies emerge, personal challenges arise. On paper, everything is there. Yet somehow, the narrative never builds the sense of urgency you'd expect. Major story beats come and go without leaving much emotional impact. There are scenes that should feel enormous, but instead simply feel like another stop on the journey. Part of that comes down to pacing. The film often slows itself down with lengthy stretches of travel and dialogue before suddenly accelerating into large action sequences. Those shifts can feel abrupt rather than earned. As viewers, we never felt completely locked into the momentum of the story. Does the film feel epic? That's an interesting question because visually, yes, the scale is undeniably impressive. There are huge environments, expansive worlds, and plenty of ambitious visual effects. But spectacle alone doesn't create excitement. What creates excitement is emotional investment. If audiences genuinely care about what's happening to the characters, even relatively small scenes can feel enormous. Conversely, if that emotional investment isn't there, even the biggest visual effects sequence can feel surprisingly empty. That's unfortunately how several moments in Supergirl landed for us. The visuals are certainly ambitious. The emotional payoff simply isn't always there. One thing that surprised us was how little impact many of the supporting characters ultimately have. On paper, the cast is filled with personalities that should help shape Supergirl's journey. Throughout the film, she meets allies, adversaries, and individuals whose experiences are clearly intended to challenge her worldview. Yet many of these characters feel more like plot devices than fully realized people. Jason Momoa as Lobo was an audience anticipation, but not even Jason Momoa could save this one. And to be honest, he should have stayed well away from this project. It's disappointing because some of the performances are genuinely solid. The actors commit to the material, and you can see glimpses of interesting character dynamics beginning to emerge. But just as those relationships start becoming engaging, the film moves on to its next destination. There simply isn't enough time spent developing these connections. Some of the strongest superhero films understand that memorable supporting characters are just as important as the hero. Think about the relationships that define the best comic book movies. Characters who bring warmth, humor, or emotional depth to the story. Here, those opportunities feel underdeveloped. Let's talk about the action. This is one area where the film certainly has ambition. There are some impressive visual effects throughout, and several sequences demonstrate real creativity in how they're staged. The scale is impressive, and there are moments where the cinematography genuinely shines. But action isn't just about explosions and visual spectacle. The best action scenes tell a story. They reveal character. They raise the stakes. They make audiences sit on the edge of their seats because they genuinely don't know what's going to happen next. That's something Supergirl struggles to achieve consistently. Many of the action scenes feel technically accomplished, but emotionally detached. You watch them unfold, admire the visual craftsmanship, and then move on without feeling particularly affected. There's a difference between watching something impressive and feeling invested in it. Unfortunately, we often found ourselves doing the former rather than the latter. For us, the screenplay is where the biggest problems begin to surface. There are plenty of interesting ideas scattered throughout the film. Themes of identity, isolation, belonging, responsibility, legacy. These are all compelling concepts that fit naturally within Supergirl's mythology. The problem is that the script introduces many of these ideas without fully exploring them. Several emotional moments arrive before the audience has had enough time to become invested. Dialogue occasionally feels more functional than memorable, moving characters from one scene to another instead of revealing something meaningful about who they are. You can almost sense a stronger movie hidden underneath this screenplay. With another draft, or perhaps simply a greater focus on character rather than constant movement across the galaxy, the final result might have been considerably stronger. We need to talk about Millie Alcock. What the hell was she doing in the lead up to the release of this film? She was slandering male fans of DC for not being progressive enough. She claimed she was a target of male discrimination and sexualization when she had no evidence to back it up. She was supposed to be promoting the film, but in her warped mind, I think she thought she was giving herself status by making these claims. But all she was doing was showing everyone she is actually Rachel Zegler 2.0, and she is here to assist in tanking the PR for the movie. Things got worse when she hinted in interviews Supergirl could be an LGBTQ movie, and that Supergirl could be that way inclined. And just in Zegler style, she stated she's glad there is no male love interest in the film, as that is dull. In the interviews, she came across as an annoying little girl who was completely tone deaf and doesn't know when to keep quiet. Ah man, it was bad. I knew this film was in trouble months before its release. Let me tell you something. We can all agree The Flash was a terrible movie, but one good thing came out of that film: Sasha Calle. Her adaptation of Supergirl was intense. I would pick Sasha Calle over Millie Alcock all day long. Sasha was powerful and strong, without the annoying feminist politics. She was vulnerable and delicate at the same time, which was a tough thing to pull off, but she managed it perfectly. She gave us a version of Supergirl we had never seen before, and she was an absolute breath of fresh air. And that's the only thing I loved about The Flash. Going back to the Supergirl film, one question kept coming back to us throughout the movie. Is Supergirl trying so hard to separate itself from previous DC films that it forgets what audiences love about the character? Reinvention is healthy. Every generation deserves its own interpretation of iconic heroes. But reinvention still needs to preserve the emotional heart that made audiences fall in love with those heroes in the first place. That's where this film occasionally loses its way. It feels determined to present a harder, rougher version of Supergirl. But in doing so, it sometimes sacrifices warmth, optimism, and emotional accessibility. Those qualities aren't weaknesses. They're part of what makes the character special. Without them, this version feels strangely distant. Now, to be fair, we don't think Supergirl is without merit. Far from it. There are moments where you can clearly see the creative ambition behind the project. The production design is detailed. The costume work is impressive. The visual effects are often convincing. Several set pieces demonstrate genuine imagination, and the filmmakers deserve credit for attempting something that doesn't simply recycle familiar superhero formulas. We also appreciated that the movie isn't afraid to take creative risks. Not every risk pays off, but we'd rather see ambitious filmmaking than something that feels completely safe. That's important to acknowledge because criticism should always be balanced. There is talent behind this production. Our issue is that the individual pieces never quite come together into a cohesive whole. Every major superhero release today exists within a much larger conversation. Audiences aren't simply watching one movie anymore. They're asking whether this is a universe they want to continue investing in. That's an enormous responsibility for every DC release moving forward. While Supergirl introduces interesting concepts and expands the world in meaningful ways, we're left feeling that it doesn't provide the emotional confidence the franchise needs at this stage. Instead of walking out excited about where the story goes next, we found ourselves wishing the film had spent more time perfecting the story directly in front of it. Sometimes bigger isn't better. Sometimes the most memorable superhero films succeed because they focus on one compelling emotional journey, rather than trying to build an entire universe. This is probably the question most of you clicked on the video to hear answered. From our perspective, we'd say this depends entirely on your expectations. If you're a lifelong DC fan who wants to experience every chapter of the new cinematic universe, then you'll probably still want to see it on the big screen and make up your own mind. But if you're simply looking for an unforgettable blockbuster experience, we think your expectations should be measured. For us, this isn't essential cinema viewing. While there are impressive visuals and moments of creativity, the emotional core never becomes strong enough to justify the journey. Personally, we'd recommend waiting until it arrives on streaming platforms. You'll still be able to appreciate the film's strengths without feeling that you've missed out on a must-see theatrical event.
At Screen Hollywood, we always try to judge films on what they achieve rather than what we hoped they would be. There are flashes of imagination throughout Supergirl.
There are moments where the visual ambition genuinely impresses, and there are ideas buried within the screenplay that could have developed into something truly memorable. But great superhero films need more than striking visuals. They need characters audiences believe in, and Millie Alcock's character was not audience-friendly. And pushing the woke feminist ideology in the film so hard turned the audiences off. The woke Mary Sue trope is tired and dated, and I'm surprised they used this tactic in the story. I didn't really care for Supergirl's character. She was annoying and arrogant, a little woman with boy energy trying to be a feminist. People don't want politics when they go to see a superhero movie. People want stories that build genuine emotional momentum and stakes that leave viewers thinking about the experience long after the credits roll. Unfortunately, Supergirl never consistently delivers on those fundamentals. For us, it feels like a film searching for its identity instead of confidently embracing one. That doesn't make it unwatchable, it simply makes it a disappointment considering the potential of both the character and the creative team behind the project. Our final verdict? Screen Hollywood gives Supergirl 2.5 out of 5 stars. It's an ambitious film with moments of promise, but one that ultimately struggles to balance style, character, and storytelling into a satisfying whole. But that's just our opinion. Now we want to hear from you. Have you already seen Supergirl? Did you enjoy it more than we did? Or do you agree with our review? Jump into the comments below and let us know your thoughts. We always love hearing different perspectives, and we'll be joining the discussion. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Screen Hollywood, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest movie reviews, entertainment news, and deep dives into the biggest films and TV shows. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.